Welcome to Stories to Fall Asleep With. Just set me playing, relax, and drift off. Maybe you'll dream about the story I'm telling you. Subscribe, and you'll end up with a library of stories to choose from. Comment to let me know where in the world you are. I love knowing that trivia. Enough rambling, on with the story. I know you'll love it, even if you don't reach the end. The Tempest, a novel. Chapter 1. The storm, it began with thunder. Not the kind that growls in the distance like a warning, but a great crack that split the sky above the sea and rolled across the waves in a fury. A thick, choking wind rose with it, furious and salt-laden, driving the royal ship hard to port, its great sails snapping like whips. Darkness rolled in across the sky, and with it came rain, fast, cold, and stinging like needles. The sea rose as if to answer the sky's rage. Each wave was a mountain of water, rising in awful rhythm to crash down upon the deck. Sailors ran to and fro, their feet slipping on drenched wood, their hands raw from rope. At the helm, the boatswain fought the wheel with all his strength, shouting orders against the howl of wind and sea. "Down with the topmast!" he cried. "Yare! Tend to the mainsail! Take in the topsail! Bring her to try with the main course!" But even as his voice rose in command, it was nearly drowned by the roar of the elements. A bolt of lightning struck the sea so close that for an instant everything flashed white, and shadows danced like spirits upon the sails. Below deck, the noble passengers clung to the timbers, the sharp pitch of the ship throwing them side to side. Among them was Alonso, King of Naples, his face pale and drawn with fear. His son Ferdinand sat beside him, grasping the rail, eyes wide with something between awe and terror. Gonzalo, the king's faithful old counselor, tried to keep order. "I have great comfort from this fellow," Gonzalo muttered, half to himself, half to no one. "Methinks he hath no drowning mark upon him. His complexion is perfect gallows." He gave a weak laugh. "Stand fast, good fate, to his hanging. Make the rope of his destiny our cable, for our own doth little advantage." Up above, the boatswain did his best to hold the vessel together. He had little patience for royal feet getting in the way of sailors' work. "You are a counselor," he snapped when Gonzalo came stumbling up the stairs. "If you can command these elements to silence and work the peace of the present, we will not hand a rope more." "Use your authority. If you cannot, make yourself scarce and trouble us not." "What?" came the shocked reply. "Shall we give o'er and drown? Have you no respect for rank?" "None that I do not respect more when at sea," the boatswain growled. "Out of our way, I say!" The tempest raged on. The ship groaned under the pressure, the mast straining, rigging snapping, waves pouring over the deck with every lurch. Despite the sailors' skill, the storm was too great. Nature had taken hold of the vessel, and no hand could steady her. Suddenly, the cry went up. "We split! We split!" And then all was chaos. Screams, water, the sound of timbers giving way. The ship, as fine a vessel as ever bore a king, broke apart under the weight of the sea. It was swallowed, piece by piece, by the churning ocean. But the sea did not take all. Far from the wreck, on the edge of a strange and lonely island, stood a man draped in robes of faded blue. His beard was long, his brow furrowed with age and thought. He watched the storm unfold, not with fear, but with calm calculation. At his side, almost invisible but for the shimmer in the air, hovered a figure light as mist. "You did it well," Prospero said softly, not turning his gaze from the sea. "My spirit, my Ariel. The storm obeyed your hand." Ariel bowed mid-air, gleaming faintly. "As you commanded, master. I raised the sea and flamed amazement upon the men. I scattered them about the isle. Not a hair perished. All are safe, just as you wished." Prospero nodded slowly. His eyes, deep with memory and purpose, narrowed at the distant horizon where the sea began to calm. "Then our work begins." Chapter 2. The Island and the Past. The storm passed as swiftly as it had come. Its fury faded into the murmuring lull of the sea, and a new light rose over the island. a pale gold that warmed the edges of rocks and stirred the tops of the palm trees. The sky, once a churning black, now wore a gentle blue veil. The sand, soaked and wind-streaked, bore no trace of wreckage, but the island had seen all. It watched, ancient and quiet, as new footsteps returned to its soil. Atop a mossy outcrop that overlooked the eastern shore, Prospero lowered his hand. His eyes, deep and unblinking, scanned the distant sea where the last of the waves retreated. Beside him the spirit Ariel hovered, half invisible in the morning air, his form wavering like a heat haze, delicate and bright. "All are landed," Ariel said again, a flicker of pride in his voice. "The ship is safe in the hidden harbor, tucked away behind the cliffs. The mariners sleep in their berths, dreaming nothing. The king and his son are apart. Each believes the other drowned. Just as you willed it." Prospero turned at last to face him, and though his expression was serious, a softness came into his tone. "You have done well, Ariel. With precision and care. I thank you." Ariel, though pleased, hesitated. "Master, may I remind you, was not this task the last? Have I not served you faithfully all these years?" Prospero regarded him quietly. "You have spirit, and I forget not my promise. But one more labor I ask. Perform it well, and your freedom is yours." Ariel, despite his wish, bowed his head. "What would you have me do?" "Observe the newcomers. Keep watch as they move through the island. Stir them as I bid you, especially the young man, Ferdinand, the king's son. He shall be led to my daughter. The rest? They shall be tried, each in turn. Then, when all is resolved, I will break your bonds." With a flick of light, Ariel vanished into the wind, leaving Prospero alone, but for the soft cry of seabirds and the hush of palm fronds. Prospero turned, his robe brushing the stones as he made his way down a narrow, winding path through the trees. The island was not large, but it was lush, thick with green, dotted with springs and hidden groves. The scent of herbs hung in the air. He walked with purpose, yet slowly, as if following not a path through earth, but through memory. At last, he reached a small clearing where a young woman sat beside a pool of fresh water, her feet in the shallows, her hands weaving a garland of wild blossoms. She looked up as he approached. "Father," she said, rising to greet him, "you seem troubled. Was that not a dreadful storm?" "The sky seemed to fall and the sea boiled like a cauldron. I feared for every soul upon it." Prospero laid a hand on her shoulder. "Be calm, Miranda. No harm has come to any person." "No harm?" she asked. "Oh, I have suffered with those I saw suffer. A brave vessel dashed to pieces. The poor souls within cried to the heavens." "Be collected," Prospero said gently. "Tell your heart there's no harm done." She searched his face, puzzled. "You raised this storm, did you not?" Prospero nodded. 12 years, Miranda. 12 years have I waited for this day. Now come. You are old enough at last to know the truth." He guided her to sit beside him beneath a leaning palm, where the sun warmed the earth and the leaves cast slow-moving shadows. "You know little enough of whence you came," he began. "You remember nothing before we came to this island?" "Nothing," she said. "Only that you were my father and I was your small companion." "I am more than that," Prospero said. "I was once Duke of Milan." Miranda's eyes widened. "Yes," he continued. "Your father was the ruler of a powerful city, but I turned from matters of court and power to the quiet study of books and arts. I trusted too much in my brother Antonio. I gave him the governance of the state while I pursued knowledge. He grew ambitious and cunning." Miranda listened silently, her hands resting in her lap, her garland forgotten. "He conspired with the King of Naples, yes, the very man whose ship now lies moored by this island. Together they overthrew me. By night they cast us out, you and I, set adrift in a broken vessel. But fortune favored us. Gonzalo, a noble Neapolitan, pitied us. He gave us food, clothes, even books, those precious volumes that have since served me here." She looked around at the trees, the blue sky above. "And this island became our home." "Aye," Prospero said, "and I have waited, learning, watching. And now at last my enemies are here, brought by the very sea that once carried us to exile. Miranda stood slowly, the gravity of his words settling upon her like dust. What will you do, father? Prospero looked toward the grove, where faint birdsong echoed. Set right what was broken, and give you at last the life you were born to. Chapter 3. A Stranger and a Daughter. The tide had retreated, leaving behind a glistening trail of seaweed and shells upon the pale sand. Palm shadows stretched long and quiet as the sun climbed slowly, warming the shore. Among the driftwood and foam, a figure stumbled ashore, a youth with salt-crusted clothes and the look of one who had escaped the hands of drowning by mere inches. Ferdinand, Prince of Naples, staggered to his knees. His hair hung wet around his face, and he gasped in air like a man returned from death. The sea behind him shimmered, indifferent to his suffering. Around him, the island lay in watchful silence, its canopy thick with bird song and the buzz of insects. He rose slowly, every muscle aching from the storm, yet his thoughts were not of pain or exhaustion. They were fixed on grief. My father, he whispered. My father is drowned. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. He pressed a hand to his heart, then to his brow. The seas are merciless, yet I live while he lies beneath them. Then a voice, soft as leaves moving in the breeze, broke through his sorrow. There, father, what is he? Miranda stood just beyond the tree line, partially hidden by the foliage. She leaned forward, eyes wide, mouth slightly parted in wonder. Never in her life had she seen any man besides her father, not once, not even in passing. And this young man, drenched in sea and sunlight, seemed to her like something summoned from the pages of her father's books. A spirit? She breathed. Prospero stepped beside her, his hand on her shoulder. No spirit. Flesh and blood like you. A young man cast upon this island by fate and by design. Ferdinand, still unaware of their presence, gazed upward to the forest canopy. Heavens, let me behold some wonder to distract this grief, something sweet to ease my heart, Prospero murmured. He is under enchantment, but not one of harm. He raised his staff and, with a few quiet words, guided Ferdinand's footsteps toward them as though drawn by instinct. Leaves parted without resistance. Branches did not snag his clothes. He came upon them with wonder in his eyes, and when he saw Miranda, he stopped as if time itself had paused to take in the sight. Most sure, Ferdinand whispered, the goddess on whom these airs attend. Miranda blushed at the words, not entirely understanding, but moved by the look upon his face. Ferdinand bowed low. Oh, you wonder, be you maid or no? I am no goddess, sir, she replied, suddenly shy. But I do live here. A maid indeed never seen before by any man, nor seen any man but one. Ferdinand stared. My language? My own? You speak my tongue? This is no savage isle. You are no savage. Miranda turned to Prospero, a flush in her cheeks. Is he safe, father? He speaks gently. He does, Prospero said, eyeing the youth with hidden calculation. And yet we must be cautious. Hearts, when stirred, can race ahead of reason. Then to Ferdinand he said with the tone of quiet command, Who are you, sir? How came you here upon this island? I am Ferdinand, came the answer, son to the King of Naples, though I fear I am now the only living one. King. Ferdinand, then, said Prospero with a faint, unreadable smile. For if your father drowned as you suppose, the crown falls to you. Ferdinand bowed his head. It is a crown weighted with sorrow. There was a pause. Miranda could not. Stop looking at him. Is he truly a man, father? She asked in a whisper. I have never known such a face. He seems so noble, so kind. I wish I could ease his sadness. You see in him much good, Prospero said. Too much, too fast. We must temper your heart with time. Then aloud, he said to Ferdinand, I fear, sir, that you come with trouble. I must test you, for your truth is unknown to me. Are you truly heir to Naples, or one sent by deceit?" Ferdinand stood tall, though his limbs trembled with weariness. "I have no sword, no threat. I am alone, washed ashore. Yet if proof is what you seek, I will endure what you will." Prospero nodded. "Then follow me. You shall work for your peace here, carry logs, tend fire, earn my trust. If you are noble, you will not shrink from labor." Ferdinand bowed his head. "If that is the price, I accept it. For here," he glanced at Miranda, "I have found more than I could have dreamed." As Prospero turned and led the way, Miranda lingered, her thoughts stirred like water in sunlight. Ferdinand caught her gaze one last time before following, her father into the trees. In her heart something had begun, and in Prospero's mind a plan was unfolding. Chapter 4. A Monster and Two Fools. The island was vast in feeling, though not in measure. It folded in on itself with tangled vines and whispered winds, with sudden hills that overlooked glassy pools, and groves that rang with birdsong no man had ever named. Some corners of it bore a hush, an ancient silence as if even time paused there. In such a place, among twisted roots and the ruined remnants of a tree struck by lightning, crouched a figure both man and not. His skin was dark with earth and sun. His limbs were long, his eyes yellowed like amber glass. A rough cloth, no more than stitched bark and tattered fishnet, hung from his shoulders. His breath came in steady snorts. He muttered to himself. This was Caliban. "Cursed day," he grumbled, gnawing at a root he had torn from the soil. "The storm should have drowned them all. But no, they live. I heard their shouting, smelled the sea stink on their boots." He spat. "'Tis his doing. Prospero, always Prospero, master of spells and chains and lies. Thief of the island." He scratched a crude symbol into the dirt, a spiral crossed by a jagged line. Mine this was, my mother's before me. Sycorax, dark and mighty. She ruled with fear and song and flame. They called her witch. She was power, and I, her only son, until he came. The memory stirred like rot beneath water. He promised books, light, wisdom. I showed him the springs, the safe routes, the paths through the bog, and he taught me words, taught me names for stars and birds and pain. His voice dropped low, almost reverent. And then he turned. He made me servant, monster, slave, chained me with his magic, cursed me with sleep and itching and fire, took the island and gave me nothing. He hurled the root against a rock. It broke in two. I'll have my revenge. Or drink deep and forget. He sniffed the air. Something was coming. Voices, strange, foolish, half-sung. Stumbling through the underbrush came two men. One was slight, his cloak soaked through, mud caked to his knees. The other was round and ruddy, with a wineskin clutched in his fist and a song at his lips. They were arguing about nothing and everything. The slender one, Trinculo, pushed a branch aside and stopped short. "Sweet heavens," he muttered, peering at Caliban, who now crouched motionless behind a rock. "What have we here? A fish? A man? A man-fish?" Caliban, startled, bared his teeth. "Don't eat me," Trinculo said quickly, stepping back. "I'm mostly bone and cowardice." The fat man stumbled into view, nearly tripping over Trinculo. "Peace, fool. It's a native, an islander." He squinted, then raised his wineskin in salute. "Hail, strange creature. I am Stephano, newly lord of nothing but drunker than any king alive." Caliban stared at the wineskin. His nose twitched. "What is that?" he rasped. "This?" Stephano grinned. "A cure for all sorrow. Come, beast or spirit or man, have a draught." Caliban reached out slowly, suspicion flickering in his eyes. He drank. His whole face shifted. Light exploded behind his eyes. Heat, joy, confusion. It was fire, but inside. It tasted of fruit and danger. He gasped, then laughed aloud, a wild cracked sound. "Oh, brave liquor," he cried. "Let me kiss thy foot." Stephano blinked. "I like this fellow." Trinculo rolled his eyes. "He's drunk already." Caliban turned to them with new reverence. You are gods. Come from the sky. I will serve you. I will show you all the island. Springs, fruits, shelter, caves. Gods, is it? Stephano chuckled. Well, I always suspected. I have the legs of a demigod. Trinculo scoffed. You have the legs of a goat and the brains of a puddle. But Caliban had already fallen to his knees. Prospero shall fall. You shall reign. I will be your subject. This land shall be yours. The two men looked at each other, then down at Caliban. Reckon he's mad, Trinculo said. Mad or not, he's useful, Stephano said. Let him serve, if he knows where food grows, and where Prospero sleeps. He trailed off, the thought forming slowly. Caliban looked up, his eyes sharp despite the drink. He has a daughter, he said. Stephano raised an eyebrow. Does he? A beauty, like the sky at dawn. You take her, you take the island. Stephano straightened. A king's reward for a sailor's fall. I like it. Trinculo scratched his head. You're plotting rebellion with a mud-covered madman. A loyal madman, Stephano replied, patting Caliban's head. And this day begins our rise. Caliban's voice dropped to a whisper. I will show you where he sleeps. I know, the root that dulls his magic. Give me one more drink. The wineskin was passed, the pact sealed. And somewhere, unseen in the rustling leaves above, a shimmer in the air, Ariel vanished into the trees, off to tell Prospero what he had heard. Chapter 5. The Weight of Love. The sun arced slowly overhead, warming the island into a hush of shimmering leaves and drowsy insects. In a clearing not far from Prospero's dwelling, a young man toiled beneath the heavy shade of a fig tree, sweat darkening his sleeves, his arms trembling with effort. Ferdinand bore a log across his shoulders, one of many he had lifted that day. A pile already waited beside the fire pit, stacked neat and high. Though his limbs ached, he did not complain. His thoughts were elsewhere. Miranda. She was like no one he had ever met. There was a lightness in her voice, and yet her words had weight. Her gaze met his without flinching, unburdened by vanity, untouched by deceit. In every glance he found gentleness, in every silence a mystery he longed to know. And so he labored, not with bitterness, but with quiet resolve. Prospero watched from a distance, unseen, his cloak blending into the trees. His eyes were narrow, thoughtful. He held his staff loosely in one hand and whispered low, mostly to himself. He does not bend, nor curse. There is patience in him, and in her. Affection grows too swiftly. I must be sure, I must protect her heart, though it breaks mine to see her kept apart. He turned and disappeared into the undergrowth. Moments later, Miranda came along the winding path with a basket of fruit balanced in one arm. Her step was quick, eager. She had waited until her father walked his morning circuit around the island, and though her heart beat fast with guilt, her hope outpaced it. When she saw Ferdinand, her face brightened. You work too hard, she said gently. He looked up, and despite the ache in his muscles, he smiled. I would carry mountains if it earned your smile. She blushed, lowering the basket. Then I must frown, or you'll break yourself to pieces. They sat on a fallen log. She offered him a fig, and he took it, his fingers brushing hers. It was a small touch, but it sent a thrill through them both. Tell me again, she asked, softly, of the place you come from. It is full of people, he said, chewing thoughtfully, of bells and towers, voices in every street. The sea presses close, but the city is loud with horses, footsteps, music. Yet now, when I think of it, I miss only silence. And you? She turned her face away, unsure what to say. She had known only this island, only her father and the spirit Ariel, and the distant memory of lullabies sung over waves. Yet when she was with Ferdinand, the trees seemed less wild, the world more open. You must think me foolish, she said. I know nothing of cities or courts. I've never worn silk. I have never seen a mirror that showed more than my reflection in the stream. I think you wise, he said, and more fair than anything I left behind. They were silent, while the island whispered around them. Cicadas, birds, the rustle of leaves. Then Ferdinand said, more serious, "Your father is stern with me. Do you think he hates me?" Miranda hesitated. "He is wary. He loves me greatly, perhaps too much, and he has suffered. He trusts little. I would prove myself to him," Ferdinand said, "though it is hard to labor when my heart is full." She looked at him, eyes wide. "Why is your heart full?" He stood, turning toward her with sudden intensity. "Because I love you, Miranda. From the moment I saw you, through every log I've lifted, through every hour spent in sweat and longing, I have loved you." She rose, heart racing. Oh, you make me tremble to hear you say so. Do you not feel it too?" She smiled, radiant with relief. I do. I feared to say it. But I have not slept for thinking of you." He stepped closer. "Then let me say it once more. I love you, with all that I am. And if your father allows it, I would marry you. Here, now, or anywhere the world might carry us." She reached for his hand. Yes. Behind the trees, Prospero stood with his staff raised, but did not speak the spell he had prepared. He watched, the edges of his eyes glistening. For all his craft and wisdom, he was still a father, and he saw before him not the reckless passion of youth, but something gentler, something true. He stepped into the clearing. Ferdinand and Miranda turned in alarm. "Sir," Ferdinand said quickly, "forgive me. I have said more than I ought." But Prospero raised his hand, silencing him. "Be not afraid. I have watched and heard all, and I am no longer your trial master." He looked at Ferdinand with new regard. "You have proved honest and kind. You are more than I had hoped." Then he turned to Miranda. "Child of mine, you are all my hope, all my years, all my heart. If this man is your choice, he has my blessing." Miranda rushed into her father's arms. Ferdinand bowed low, filled with awe and gratitude. Prospero held them both for a long moment. Then, quietly, he said, "Come, there is still much to be done. Your union must wait, though not forever. First I must finish what was begun 12 years ago." He turned away, and they followed. But behind them, love had planted its roots deep in the island soil. Chapter 6. A Drunken Conspiracy. The jungle thickened where the sun rarely touched the ground. Trees rose like ancient pillars, their trunks painted with moss, their roots tangled like sleeping serpents. The air was rich with the scent of crushed fern and ripened fruit, of brine and the faint sweetness of rot. In this steaming green, 3 figures stumbled along a narrow path, swaying like reeds in a storm. The wineskin was nearly empty now. Its precious dregs passed between them with reverence and greed. Stephano marched at the front, his chest puffed, the remains of a broken branch thrust forward like a scepter. Behind him, Trinculo complained with every third step, scratching at insect bites and tripping over roots. At the rear came Caliban, eyes wild with drink and fury. His devotion was loud and erratic, part hymn, part madness. "Remember," Caliban slurred, gesturing toward the twisted trees. "The old paths lead to his cave. I know them. I walked them as a child when my mother ruled." Trinculo paused, gasping. "We've walked in circles. I saw that same stone an hour ago." Stephano turned, wobbling with the effort. "Peace, fool. We have a guide, do we not? A loyal subject, sworn to crown me king of this dripping paradise. I am your servant," Caliban cried, falling to his knees in the muck. "Lead me, and I will lick your boots. You shall have Miranda for wife and the island for throne." Stephano smirked. "Yes, the princess and the power, and you, Trinculo, shall be duke of the latrine." Trinculo glared. "You're drunker than Neptune's goat, and happier for it," Stephano said, lifting the wineskin. He shook it. Empty. He frowned. Caliban crawled forward, tugging at Stephano's boot. "We must strike tonight, while he sleeps. I know the spell that binds his senses, a root that numbs the blood and makes his magic sleep. We shall brain him with a log, take his book, and burn it." "Burn his book?" Trinculo echoed. That's not very sporting. Caliban turned on him, suddenly serious. Without that book, he is no more than a man. But with it, he commands storms, spirits, dreams. Take the book, and the island is yours. Stephano scratched his beard. It does seem sensible. Trinculo muttered. Since when are you the sort to strike down a sleeping man? Since I discovered wine and kingdoms. Stephano replied, chest rising with pride. They moved on, deeper into the trees. The light dimmed. Branches grew close and heavy. Strange cries echoed through the forest. Animal, wind, or spirit, it was impossible to say. Caliban began to sing. His voice was broken but earnest, a song from his mother's tongue, full of hard consonants and sighing vowels. Then, unexpectedly, he wept. My mother's bones lie in the sand, he murmured. She dreamed of fire. She sang to stars. Now she is dust, and I am nothing. Stephano stared. You are something now. You are the key to a crown. Caliban nodded slowly. Then I shall help you strike. We shall seize the cave, kill the tyrant, and the island will wake again. But above them, unseen, the leaves rustled, with something more than wind. A shimmer, a flicker, Ariel, invisible, watched them closely. The spirit's eyes shone with pity and alarm. To Prospero the sprite sped silently, weaving through branches like light through mist. Meanwhile, the conspirators found a glade ringed by blue flowers and soft moss. Caliban collapsed, exhausted. Stephano flung himself beside a log. Trinculo leaned against a tree, muttering curses. I shall be king, Stephano said again, voice dreamy. A throne of coral, a crown of pearl, and Miranda, sweet maid, my queen. She'll never have you, Trinculo snorted. Stephano tossed a stone at him. Watch your tongue, jester. Caliban opened one eye. Sleep now. At moonrise we go to strike. But as the three sank into dreams, lulled by wine and the warm hush of the glade, the trees seemed to lean closer. The air thickened. A hum of music threaded through the dusk, thin, eerie, full of mischief. Then, soft and strange, Ariel conjured a procession. Out from the shadows came glimmering garments, spread like offerings on a branch. Silken robes of golden thread, encrusted with shells and fake jewels that shimmered like treasure. They hung there temptingly, lit by moonlight and magic. Stephano sat up. What ho? What's this? Trinculo stood and gasped. Treasures! Look, look! Jewels! Satin! That's the coat of a prince! Caliban groaned. Touch them not. They are traps. Spirits do this. I know their games. But Stephano had already grabbed the coat, holding it against his chest. I'll wear this when I crown myself king. Trinculo was already draping a sash over his shoulder. We'll march in as princes. Caliban stood frantic. Leave them. It is a trick. Prospero watches. They laughed, drunk on dreams and enchantment. But in the trees above, Ariel vanished again, the illusion cast, and the warning ignored. Soon Prospero would act, and the fool's rebellion, born of thirst and fantasy, would find its reckoning. Chapter 7. The conscience of kings, the midday heat lay thick upon the island, pressing down like a hand. Even the insects hummed more slowly. The air tasted of salt and flowers, of earth and something older, something buried in roots and stone. Through a grove of gnarled tamarind trees walked 4 men, their steps slowed not only by weariness, but by the heaviness of memory. King Alonso of Naples led the group, his garments torn, his eyes shadowed by grief. His son was gone, Ferdinand, the joy of his heart, swallowed by the sea perhaps, or worse, claimed by this island's strange magic. In his sorrow, Alonso barely spoke, barely ate. Every rustle of leaves made him start, hoping and fearing all at once. Beside him trudged Gonzalo, the old counselor. Gentle-eyed and wise, he tried to speak comfort, though his voice was hoarse from use. He watched Alonso closely. like a father watching a wounded child. A little behind walked Sebastian, Alonso's brother, and Antonio, the Duke of Milan, Prospero's usurping brother. These two spoke low and often apart, their eyes moving like blades, always alert, always calculating. "Your Highness," Gonzalo said gently, gesturing to a mossy stone. "Rest a while. The heat grows fierce, and grief is no light burden." Alonso nodded dully and sank onto the stone. His fingers plucked idly at a fern growing at its base. Gonzalo crouched beside him. "There is hope yet. This island is strange. Yes, but not cruel. I believe we are brought here for a purpose, perhaps even to heal." Alonso said nothing. Antonio and Sebastian exchanged a glance. "A noble speech," Sebastian said dryly. "But tell me, Gonzalo, do your dreams also sing in Latin and wear halos?" Antonio chuckled. Gonzalo frowned, but answered evenly, "I do not speak of dreams, but of design. We are not the first to suffer loss. And sometimes loss teaches more than victory." Antonio leaned against a tree. "Loss taught your master Prospero to vanish into legend." Sebastian gave a bitter laugh. "Legend? More like lunacy. If you believe the old tales, he walked into the sea with his daughter, chanting at the waves. What king gives up his power and walks away? What brother steals it from him?" Gonzalo asked quietly, looking directly at Antonio. There was a silence. Alonso stirred. "Peace, all of you." He stood, brushing bark from his knees. "I care not for Prospero, past or present. I care for my son, and the sea gives no return." Sebastian's face tightened. He stepped forward. "Your Majesty, if I may say, our path here is odd. First the storm, unnatural in strength. Then this island, filled with sounds and tricks. We see no beasts, yet hear music. We are watched," Antonio added. "And perhaps more than watched. We are judged." "By whom?" Alonso asked. "Heaven? Perhaps," said Gonzalo softly. There was a rustle in the trees, and all turned, sharply. But it was only the wind, or seemed to be. They moved on, the four men weaving through glades and gullies, their conversation trailing into silence. In time, they came upon a clearing unlike any before. Here the trees grew in a perfect circle, framing a space of lush grass and wildflowers. And in the center, a banquet. It shimmered in the light like a mirage. Golden platters bore roast pheasant, steaming breads, fruit piled high, and wine in crystal goblets. No servant stood nearby. No smoke rose from a fire. It was as if the meal had appeared by command of the forest itself. They froze. Antonio stepped forward, cautious. "Do you see it?" Sebastian sniffed the air. "It smells real." "Perhaps it is a gift," Gonzalo said slowly. "The island gives what it takes." Alonso said nothing, staring hard at the wine. Then a voice rang out, clear and strange. Aerial, invisible to the men, now took form in the air above them. Not fully seen, but sensed. A shimmer in the branches, a hum in the bones. "You men of sin," Ariel spoke, but in Prospero's voice, all four staggered back. Gonzalo fell to his knees. Ariel continued, every word like thunder from nowhere. "You are brought here not by chance, but by the justice of fate. You, Alonso, caused a usurper's fall. You, Antonio and Sebastian, conspired and betrayed blood. The sea swallowed your ship not to drown you, but to deliver you to reckoning. The banquet vanished, a puff of smoke, a whisper of ash. You are prey to conscience," Ariel said, "and unless you amend, you shall be prey to the island." Then all was quiet again. The men stood shaking. Alonso clutched his chest. "My son, my sin." Sebastian staggered back, pale. It was a voice. It spoke my name. Antonio said nothing. His jaw was tight. His hands clenched. Gonzalo helped the king to sit. "We are not alone, and we are not innocent." The island was still, but the trees seemed to listen, and far off, in his cave, Prospero lowered his hand, his eyes closing. "They begin to see," he murmured. Let guilt teach what exile could not. Let them walk the edge of remorse. Ariel shimmered beside him, their voice faint. Shall I torment them more? No, Prospero said. Not yet. Let them taste the truth. The rest will follow. The spell was working, the past was stirring, and soon all would be revealed. Chapter 8. The Circle Drawn. The sky had darkened to a soft violet, and the sea whispered against the sand as if it too waited. The island breathed slowly in the hush of twilight, an exhale before the storm of reckoning. Inside his rocky cell, lit by flickering torches and the soft glow of ancient knowledge, Prospero stood tall. Before him lay his books, his staff, and the circle he had drawn on the ground, the symbol of all he had worked and waited for. His robe, rich with arcane thread, shimmered like night water. His beard caught the firelight. Yet his face was tired, not with age, but with the weight of years spent in exile, planning not only survival but justice. Ariel, invisible but present, hovered nearby like a thought in the air. They are broken, my lord, said Ariel softly. Alonso weeps, Antonio trembles, and Sebastian hides his shame behind silence. Prospero nodded slowly. And yet they live. You have shown them more mercy than they ever showed you. I have not yet decided whether mercy is the lesson, Prospero said. His voice was calm but not cold. They must face me. Shall I bring them? Ariel asked. Bring them, Prospero said, and bring Ferdinand. The spirit vanished without sound. Prospero turned to the circle and stepped into it. He placed his hand upon the staff, its wood humming faintly beneath his palm. All I have. Done. Each storm, each vision was for this moment, he whispered. Not vengeance, but balance. I was wronged. My daughter was cast to the edge of the world with me, and yet she has grown kinder than I, wiser in heart. I wonder if, through her, I might become something more than a man undone by grief. He raised his staff. The flames bent toward him. Moments later the prisoners came. Led gently by Ariel, who now took the form of a breeze, they shuffled into the circle. Alonso, pale and aged beyond his years. Sebastian, his bravado stripped away. Antonio, silent, eyes guarded and glassy. Gonzalo was last, walking upright, though he knew not why. They saw Prospero and froze. Alonso blinked, as though waking from a dream. Is it? His voice cracked. Sebastian took a step back. Antonio said nothing, but Gonzalo, faithful Gonzalo, dropped to his knees. My lord, he whispered, it cannot be, and yet, it is. Rise, friend, Prospero said, crossing to him. If any here has a heart not tarnished, it is yours. He turned to the others. You stare as though I were a ghost. Perhaps I am. The man you betrayed, your brother, your duke, is long dead. What remains is shaped by exile and tempered by time. Antonio would not meet his gaze. Prospero continued, his voice level. I was cast out by your ambition, brother, set adrift with a child, left to die. Alonso, my dukedom was stolen with your blessing. Alonso bowed his head. I confess it, and I grieve it. More than ever, now that my own son is lost to the sea. Prospero's eyes flickered. Your son is not lost. All turned sharply. Ariel reappeared, and with them, Ferdinand, alive, unharmed, and beside him, radiant as moonlight on calm water, was Miranda. Alonso gasped and stumbled forward. Ferdinand, my son, is it real? Ferdinand embraced him. Father, it is real. The storm brought us here, but no harm came. Only wonder. Miranda stepped beside her father. This is your doing, is it not? She asked quietly. Prospero looked at her. No power of mine could shape your heart, he said. But yes, I caused the storm. I brought them here. For you. She took his hand. The nobles stood still. Sebastian trembled. Antonio's lips were bloodless. Prospero faced his brother. And you, Antonio, speak. Have you nothing to say to the man you wronged? The brother whose title you wear? Antonio said nothing. Then silence shall be your penance. Prospero raised his staff. I could command you all to remember your crimes each day of your life. I could send you back as fools, muttering mad things to your courts. He paused. But I shall not. I will not stain my daughter's joy with revenge. The island has shown me what magic cannot do. Heal a wound inside the heart. He lowered the staff. I forgive you, he said. Not because you deserve it, but because I will not be ruled by the past any longer. There was a long silence. Then Alonso stepped forward. Your mercy shames me, he said. What can I offer in return? Restore me to Milan, Prospero said, and restore your soul to gentleness. It shall be done. And your son shall wed my daughter, Prospero added. Let that be our bond. The king nodded. Willingly. Ariel, now glowing faintly with something like joy, hovered closer. Prospero turned to them. You have served me with grace and power. You are no longer bound. Ariel blinked. Truly, my lord? Truly. Be free. The spirit exhaled a laugh like wind in reeds and vanished into the air with a sigh. The island brightened. Prospero turned to the circle. All shall return to the ship. I will break my staff. I will drown my book. My time as master of this isle is ended. Miranda took his arm. And we shall return home? Yes, he said. Home, to where we began, but not as we were. Ferdinand took her other hand, and the circle, once drawn in anger, now dissolved beneath their feet. Chapter 9. Full Circle. The dawn came quietly. A pale light spilled across the island, softening its shadows, waking the trees gently. Birds stirred in the branches, and the sea began its endless whisper again. At the edge of the shore, where the rocks met the foam, Prospero stood alone. The others slept nearby under the shade of palms and makeshift sails, their bodies finally at peace. Alonso rested with his hand lightly on Ferdinand's shoulder. Miranda curled close to her father's old cloak. Gonzalo dreamed with a smile on his lips. Even Antonio, his brow furrowed in uneasy sleep, was still. Only Prospero remained wakeful. He held his staff in both hands, wood polished by years of touch, carved with symbols no longer needed. The air was still. Even the island seemed to wait. There was no music now, no conjured lights, no whispers of spirits in the trees. Ariel was gone, truly gone, freed, and soon Prospero would be gone too. He looked out across the ocean, its surface quiet, vast, open. Home lay somewhere beyond that horizon. Milan, a city built of marble and shadow, a life abandoned long ago, and yet the path now returned to it. He turned the staff slowly in his hands. For 12 years I ruled this place, he said softly. Its winds answered to me, its spirits obeyed. I shaped tempests, summoned visions, compelled truth. But none of that was mine. Not truly. Not deeply. He looked down at the sand. It shifted beneath his feet, just like time. Power is a cold companion, he said. It does not grieve with you. It does not laugh. It does not love. He thought of Miranda. Her eyes when she first saw Ferdinand, her joy, her gentleness, her strength. She had grown under stars no court could name, and now she would return to a world she had never known, with a heart freer than his had ever been. Prospero stepped toward the rocks. He raised the staff for the last time. I give up my art, he whispered, and with a firm, sudden gesture, he struck the staff against the stone. It cracked clean through with a dry, final sound. The magic died like breath leaving a body. Prospero knelt. From a small satchel at his side, he pulled the book, the one he had guarded even in exile. Pages of incantations, diagrams, forgotten tongues, knowledge older than kings. He opened it one last time, not to cast, but to remember. Then he closed it and tied it shut with a red ribbon. He walked to the shallows, where the tide lapped at his boots. He looked back once, at the island, now calm, stripped of enchantment, real. Then he stepped forward, and with both hands, cast the book into the sea. It floated for a moment, then sank, slowly, gently. Gone. He stood still as the sun crested the water. Gold spread across the waves. From behind him came Miranda's voice, warm with sleep. "Father?" He turned. She stood barefoot in the sand, hair tousled, her face bathed in light. "It's done," he said. She nodded. "Are you well?" "I am more myself now than I have been in years." She smiled and took his arm. Together they walked back to the camp. The others were waking. The ship, miraculously restored, waited in a nearby cove. Its sails stirred, its timbers creaked as if eager to go home. They would sail soon. Milan awaited. A dukedom would be reclaimed. A marriage would be celebrated. A life, interrupted, would begin again. But Prospero lingered a moment longer at the tree line. He looked out across the island once more, no longer his. He raised his voice, quiet but steady. "Now my charms are all o'erthrown. What strength I have's mine own." The wind caught his words and carried them inland, which is most faint. "Now 'tis true I must be here confined by you, or sent to Naples. Let me not, since I have my dukedom got and pardoned the deceiver, dwell in this bare island by your spell." He turned to Miranda, who waited at the ship's edge, her hand in Ferdinand's. "But release me from my bands with the help of your good hands." And finally, though no audience stood before him, Prospero bowed his head, quiet, humble. "As you from crimes would pardoned be, let your indulgence set me free." And with that, he stepped aboard. The sails rose, the wind filled them, and the island, having given all it could, watched its last master vanish into the sea.